Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jeremy with J&M Paranormal. Today we will be diving into secret intelligence operations and experiments on willing and unwilling human participants. From MK Ultra to Project Chaos, we will be discussing known CIA projects to conspiracy theories. If you like this content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, check out our social media. Now, grab your tinfoil hats, sit back, and enjoy the show. MK Ultra, also known as the CIA's mind control program, was a clandestine and controversial research project carried out by the United States Central Intelligence Agency during the Cold War era. The project aimed to investigate and develop techniques for mind control, behavior modification, and chemical interrogation. MK Ultra is one of the most well-known examples of government-sponsored experiments involving human subjects, and it has garnered significant attention due to its ethically questionable methods and potential human rights violations. The project was officially sanctioned in 1953 and operated under various code names, including MK Ultra and MK Search. Its objectives were broadly focused on exploring ways to manipulate human behavior, extract information, and create agents who could resist various forms of coercion. Researchers delved into a range of methods, including the use of drugs, psychoactive substances, hypnosis, electroconvulsive therapy, sensory deprivation, and psychological torture. The project involved testing various psychoactive substances such as LSD, psilocybin, and mescaline on unwitting subjects to study their effects on behavior and consciousness. These experiments often took place without the informed consent of the participants. Researchers investigated techniques for inducing hypnosis and brainwashing to alter an individual's beliefs, thoughts, and behaviors. These efforts aimed to create mind-controlled agents who could carry out covert activities. ECT, or electroconvulsive therapy, a controversial psychiatric treatment involving electrical currents to induce seizures, was studied as a potential method for erasing or altering memories. Subjects were placed in environments of sensory deprivation, such as isolation tanks, to study the effects of their mental states and susceptibility to manipulation. Many of the experiments conducted under MK Ultra were ethically questionable and raised significant human rights concerns. Participants were often unaware of the nature of the experiments and their potential risks. The project faced internal and external scrutiny, leading to its gradual termination in the 1970s. The exposure of MK Ultra's existence in the mid-1970s through investigations by journalists and government inquiries led to public outrage and calls for accountability. The revelations about MK Ultra's activities sparked significant controversy and condemnation, leading to congressional investigations, legal actions, and changes in research ethics regulations. The project serves as a cautionary tale about the ethical considerations and potential dangers associated with government-sponsored research involving human subjects. Project Artichoke was a covert CIA program initially named Project Bluebird, which aimed to study the effects of drugs and other techniques on enhancing interrogations and creating amnesia in subjects. Project Artichoke, however, aimed to explore the possibilities of mind control, interrogation, and behavior modification using various techniques including drugs, hypnosis, and other psychological manipulation methods. It was part of the broader MK Ultra program, which was initiated by the United States Central Intelligence Agency during the Cold War era. Project Artichoke was officially launched in 1951 and continued until the mid-1960s. Its main objectives were to study the effects of various substances and techniques on human subjects and to develop methods for controlling and manipulating individuals for intelligence and counterintelligence purposes. The program was primarily concerned with creating a Manchurian candidate type operative, someone who could be controlled to carry out tasks against their will or without their conscious knowledge. The project involved experiments on both willing and unwilling participants, including volunteers, prisoners, and individuals who were often unaware that they were being subjected to these experiments. Techniques used in Project Artichoke included administering drugs like LSD, mescaline, and other psychoactive substances, as well as conducting hypnosis sessions and other forms of psychological manipulation. Project Artichoke and the broader MK Ultra program came under scrutiny and criticism for ethical concerns and the mistreatment of human subjects. The program's activities were largely secretive, and many records were destroyed in an effort to conceal the extent of the experiments. In the aftermath of these revelations, public outrage led to increased oversight and regulations on human experimentation, as well as calls for greater transparency and accountability within government agencies. It's important to note that Project Artichoke and MK Ultra represent a darker chapter in the history of intelligence agencies' experimentation on human subjects without their informed consent. These programs have been widely condemned for their disregard of ethical standards and human rights. Project Chatter was a research program conducted by the Central Intelligence Agency during the 1950s as part of the broader efforts to study mind control and behavioral modification techniques. The project aimed to investigate the potential use of drugs, specifically substances like LSD, mescaline, and other chemical compounds, to manipulate human behavior and gather intelligence. Project Chatter was initiated in response to rumors that the Soviet Union and other countries were conducting research into mind-altering substances for potential use in espionage and interrogation. The CIA was concerned that these substances could be used to extract information from unwilling subjects or create unwitting agents. The project involved experiments on both animal subjects and human volunteers, often conducted without their knowledge or informed consent. These experiments ranged from administering drugs to subjects to observe their effects, to attempts at creating methods of mind control and truth serum-like substances. The project also explored the potential of hypnosis, electroconvulsive therapy, and other techniques. Project Chatter was later merged with other related projects such as MK Ultra, which expanded the scope of research into mind control and behavioral modification. MK Ultra became one of the most well-known and controversial CIA programs in this field. The activities of Project Chatter and MK Ultra came under scrutiny in the 1970s, leading to congressional investigations and public revelations of unethical experimentation and human rights violations. It is important to note that the methods and ethics of Project Chatter, MK Ultra, and similar programs have been widely criticized, and many consider them to be violations of human rights and ethical standards. The revelations about these programs led to increased oversight and regulations regarding human experimentations in the intelligence and research communities. Project Stargate was a secret program conducted by the United States Central Intelligence Agency in partnership with other government agencies, including the Defense Intelligence Agency and various military branches. The project aimed to investigate and utilize psychic phenomena and remote viewing for intelligence gathering and national security purposes. It operated from the 1970s through the 1990s. The main focus of Project Stargate was on remote viewing, a purported psychic ability that allows individuals to gather information about distant or unseen targets using extrasensory perception, ESP, or other paranormal means. In remote viewing, a viewer would attempt to access information about a specific target, such as a geographical location, a person, or an event, while being separated from that target by time and space. The program had its roots in earlier government efforts to explore psychic phenomena for military and intelligence applications, and it was inspired by claims of individuals with psychic abilities. Notable figures associated with the project include Ingo Swann, Pat Price, and Harold Pothoff, among others. During its operation, Project Stargate conducted numerous experiments and trials involving remote viewing. These sessions were often guided by a set of protocols to facilitate controlled experimentation. The program's objectives included gathering intelligence on foreign military activities, installations, and other sensitive targets, locating hostages or missing persons, exploring the potential for psychic influence on people and events. While some proponents of the project claim successful results, the overall effectiveness and reliability of remote viewing as a method of intelligence gathering were highly controversial. Many within the scientific and intelligence communities were skeptical of the claims made by the program. Project Stargate faced periods of funding uncertainty and internal disagreements, and it was eventually terminated in the mid-1990s. The official reason for its closure was a lack of compelling evidence of its effectiveness and the end of the Cold War, which reduced the perceived urgency of unconventional intelligence gathering methods. The project's existence was declassified in the late 1990s, leading to public awareness of its activities. While some individuals maintain that the remote viewing has merit, it remains a topic of debate and skepticism within the scientific and intelligence communities. Operation Midnight Climax was a covert and controversial research program conducted by the United States Central Intelligence Agency during the 1950s and early 1960s. This program was part of the larger MK-Ultra project, which aimed to explore and develop various methods for mind control and psychological manipulation. The primary focus of Operation Midnight Climax was to study the effects of psychoactive substances, specifically LSD, on human behavior and consciousness. The program involved setting up safe houses, typically in San Francisco and New York City, where CIA operatives, often posing as prostitutes or madams, would administer LSD to unwitting individuals who had been lured to these locations. The subject of these experiments were usually men who were solicited in public places such as bars and then brought to the safe houses. There they would be given doses of LSD without their knowledge or consent. CIA agents would then observe the subject's behavior and reaction through one-way mirrors and recording equipment. These observations aimed to determine the effects of LSD on different aspects of the human psychology and behavior, such as susceptibility to suggestion, truth-telling under the influence of the drug, and the potential for extracting intelligence information. Operation Midnight Climax was highly sensitive and unethical, involving both illegal drug administration and invasive surveillance on unwitting participants. The program raised numerous ethical and legal concerns, and it has since become a symbol of the excess and questionable practices associated with the CIA's MK-Ultra project. The program was eventually exposed and came under scrutiny, particularly during congressional hearings in the 1970s. As a result of these investigations, many details about MK-Ultra, including Operation Midnight Climax, were declassified and brought to light. The revelations led to public outrage and criticism of the CIA's actions, and the program further fueled discussions about the ethical boundaries of government-sponsored research and experimentation on human subjects. Operation Northwoods was a proposed false flag operation by the United States Department of Defense during the early 1960s. It involved a series of plans that aimed to create justifications for a military intervention in Cuba, including the possibility of direct conflict with the Cuban government led by Fidel Castro. The operation was never carried out, and it remains an example of controversial and ethically questionable military planning. The main idea behind Operation Northwoods was to create a pretext for escalating the United States' involvement in Cuba by orchestrating a series of deceptive and covert actions. Some of the proposed actions included hijacking airplanes and blaming them on Cuban agents. The plan suggested using military or CIA personnel disguised as Cuban agents to hijack American commercial airliners. The planes would then be replaced with remote-controlled drones, and the false flag attacks would be blamed on the Cuban government, providing a reason for military action. False flag terrorist attacks. The operation proposed staging bombings and sabotage in various American cities and military installations, which would be falsely attributed to Cuban agents. This would generate public outrage and support for an intervention. Sinking ships. Plans including orchestrating attacks on U.S. Navy ships and blaming Cuba. This could involve using torpedoes, explosives, or other means to create the appearance of a Cuban attack on American vessels. Faking a Cuban invasion of Guantanamo Bay. The operation suggested creating fake evidence of a Cuban military attack on the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. This would serve as a pretext for military retaliation. It is important to note that Operation Northwoods was never implemented. The plans were presented by the Joint Chiefs of Staff to then Defense Secretary Robert McNamara in 1962. McNamara and President John F. Kennedy ultimately rejected the proposal due to its extreme and morally questionable nature. The fact that such plans were even considered highlights the potential for morally ambiguous actions within government and military circles, even in democratic societies. The existence of Operation Northwoods was declassified and made public in the early 2000s, shedding light on the lengths to which some officials were willing to go in order to justify military actions. The operation remains a controversial topic, often cited as an example of how governments might manipulate or create situations to advance their geopolitical goals. Project Monarch is a conspiracy theory that alleges the existence of a secret government program involving mind control and manipulation of individuals, particularly through trauma-based techniques. It is often associated with the broader umbrella of conspiracy theories related to government manipulation and covert operations. However, it's important to note there is no credible evidence to support the claims made by Project Monarch's proponents, and it is widely regarded as a baseless conspiracy theory. The origins of Project Monarch can be traced back to claims made by individuals who allege to have been victims of mind control experiments and abuse. These claims are often tied to allegations of government agencies like the Central Intelligence Agency and other shadowy organizations engaging in mind control experiments, psychological manipulation, and even the creation of mind-controlled slaves for various purposes, including espionage and assassination. It is important to approach such conspiracy theories critically and skeptically, as they often lack substantial evidence and rely on anecdotal accounts and speculative interpretations of events. Many experts, researchers, and journalists have debunked and discredited the claims made by the Project Monarch proponents. The psychological and scientific communities widely reject the idea of mind control techniques as described in this conspiracy theory. Project Often, also known as Operation Often, was a classified program conducted by the Central Intelligence Agency during the 1960s and early 1970s. It aimed to explore the potential of using various psychoactive substances, including drugs and chemicals, for the purposes of mind control, interrogation, and other covert operations. The project's primary focus was on finding substances that could enhance cognitive abilities, alter behavior, induce amnesia, and weaken resistance to interrogation. Project Often was part of the broader MKUltra program, which encompassed a range of research activities aimed at developing techniques to manipulate and control human behavior through the use of drugs, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and other methods. The exact details of Project Often, as well as many other MKUltra sub-projects, were highly classified and only became public knowledge through declassified documents and investigations in later years. One aspect of Project Often involved testing the effects of various psychoactive substances on both animals and humans. These substances included LSD, mescaline, heroin, and other mind-altering drugs. The goal was to determine the potential applications of these substances in intelligence operations, such as interrogation and the extraction of information from unwilling subjects. It is important to note that the methods and ethics of Project Often and the broader MKUltra program have been widely criticized. The experiments conducted under these programs often lacked proper oversight, and some individuals subjected to these experiments suffered severe physical and psychological harm. As a result, these programs have raised significant ethical concerns and have been the subject of controversy and public scrutiny. In the 1970s, as public awareness of the MKUltra program and its various sub-projects grew, investigations were launched and congressional hearings were held to examine the activities of the CIA and other government agencies involved. These revelations led to the increased oversight of intelligence activities and the development of guidelines and regulations to ensure the ethical treatment of human subjects in research. Project Often and MKUltra as a whole serve as a cautionary example of the potential dangers of unregulated and secretive experimentation on human subjects in the pursuit of intelligence and military objectives. Operation Chaos was a covert intelligence program conducted by the Central Intelligence Agency in the United States during the 1960s and early 1970s. Its primary objective was to monitor and gather information on domestic anti-war and civil rights activists, as well as various leftist and countercultural groups, with the goal of identifying potential threats to national security and preventing the spread of communism. The operation was initiated in response to concerns within the U.S. government that these activist movements could be influenced or manipulated by foreign powers, particularly the Soviet Union, and that they might undermine American society and the government's efforts during the Cold War. The CIA collected extensive information on individuals and groups considered potential targets, often utilizing techniques such as wiretapping, infiltration, and undercover agents to gather intelligence. The operation involved the compilation of dossiers and files on thousands of individuals, including their activities, associations, and political beliefs. The collected data was then analyzed to assess potential risks. Operation Chaos involved sharing gathered information with other U.S. government agencies, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation and military intelligence agencies, to better coordinate efforts to counter perceived threats. Operation Chaos became highly controversial due to concerns about its legality, ethics, and the potential violation of civil liberties. Critics argued that the operation infringed upon citizens' First Amendment rights to free speech and assembly, and it blurred the line between foreign and domestic intelligence activities. Operation Chaos faced criticism and legal challenges, and its activities were eventually curtailed. In 1973, as part of the broader reforms following the Watergate scandal, the program was officially terminated. Its legacy remains a subject of debate, with some viewing it as a necessary effort to protect national security and others as an example of government overreach and abuse of power. It is important to note that while Operation Chaos was a significant part of U.S. intelligence history, its methods and objectives have been the subject of ongoing debate and criticism, particularly regarding the balance between security concerns and individual rights. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future uploads. For more content like this, check out our playlists and follow us on our journey into dark history. Until next time, stay curious.